What is up, YouTube? Dottz Gaming here, and today I'm bringing you guys my heavy armor MagDK PvP build for the Elder Scrolls Online. This build is a really solid build overall, performs pretty well solo, really well in groups, really well in duels, and pretty good in battlegrounds and good in IC. It's a very well-rounded PvP build overall. It probably needs a little bit of tuning. When you go into no CP, you're going to find that your sustain's a little bit less, but overall, this build can really be used everywhere with good success, and at least I have run it everywhere with good success. Like I said, this is a heavy armor build. I personally, this patch, am finding for the way I play, I am finding more success with light armor, specifically for solo play. But heavy armor is still very, very good. I believe heavy armor is also a little bit better for newer MagDKs. It's more forgiving. You're tankier. And this type of build allows you to not only be up in the front lines mixing it up, but you're also going to be dealing very, very good damage. Just because the build is a heavy armor build does not mean it's a slack in the damage department. This build sports a lot of damage, and it was my go-to build last patch, and it's still good this patch. With the gear sets that this build uses, is one of those builds that it's always going to be really solid, kind of, you know, as more gear sets get changed, things come in and out of favor. This build will always be solid for a MagDK because it uses pretty standard MagDK sets. This isn't anything super crazy out of the norm for a MagDK. This is a relatively standard DK setup. It's really solid, stands the test of time, and is my favorite heavy armor build that I generally play. Now, as I always say with PvP builds, guys, they're very personal. This is what I like. This is what I enjoy. If you don't like it, if there's something about the build that you don't like or think could be changed, go ahead and change it or don't run the build. I ran this build last patch. I've run it a little bit this patch. It's good. I like it. It's a fun build. And it's really, really good for any DK of any level. If you're looking for a good heavy armor build, this will do just fine for you. But just remember, PvP builds are very personal. Everyone has their own... Oh my god, my freaking phone. Everyone has their own way of playing. Everyone has their own way that they like to do things. So just keep that in mind. But anyway, moving right into the build. Because we are a heavy armor build, we're not going to have as much damage as light armor build, of course, so in my opinion, we need the Valkynscoria monster set, which gives us a line of health and gives us that big flame damage meteor, 8% chance on dots to proc, deals main damage to your target, and some secondary damage to enemies around your target. Scoria is just such a good set for MagDK. It really helps add a lot of burst to your kit. It is, especially for heavy armor, being that it doesn't support as much damage as light, I think that the proc really helps enable burst windows. You're able to combine this really, really well with leap and or power lash to really get some good burst on your opponent. And other monster sets work well, but I believe that Scoria really helps you finish off kills a lot better than other monster sets were, specifically in duels. When I would run other monster sets like Bloodspawn, I would find that securing kills was a lot harder. Yeah, Bloodspawn would allow me to live longer, sustain a little bit easier, but I was having a lot more trouble killing people. And Scoria really, really helps with that. It just enables so much offense and allows you to really pressure your opponent. The second set we are running is Shacklebreaker. So Shacklebreaker gives you a line of weapon damage, spell damage, magicka and stam recovery, and gives you magicka and stamina. This set is fantastic for MagDK, especially heavy armor, with how it is. With the stat pool that this gives you, combined with 3 prismatic glyphs, you do not need to run Tri-Stat Food, which allows you to run Witch Mother's Potent Brew, which allows you to have much better sustain. That is why I really, really love this set. It beefs the crap out of your magicka and stamina pool, so if you can combine it with some prismatics, you don't have the need to run Tri-Stat, and you can do other things with your food and whatnot. It's a really solid set, adds a lot to the MagDK, and I have been enjoying it for this build. I also am running Burning Spellweave. So Burning Spellweave gives a line of max magicka, a line of spell damage, a line of spell crit, and when you deal damage with the flame ability, you have a 15% chance to apply the burning status effect to your enemy and increase your spell damage by 507 for 8 seconds, and it's going to occur every 12 seconds. So what I love about BSW is that unlike Sun, BSW gives you spell damage, not just spell damage on flame abilities. It applies to everything, which means it applies to your coagulating blood and other abilities that don't deal solely flame damage. The problem with a set like Sun in a build that uses coagulating blood is that Sun does not buff your heal, and coagulating blood really needs to be buffed up for it to be really useful. So I like BSW for that effect. Also, because the BSW 5-piece is a buff, it works on both your front bar and your back bar. As long as you're on your front bar when it procs, even if you switch to your back bar, it's a buff. So you essentially have that 5-piece on your back bar. So, like I said, we have our Scoria head and shoulders. We have 3 pieces of Shackle Breaker on the body, or 4 pieces of Shackle Breaker on the body. And then we have Shackle Breaker weapons. And then for BSW, we have the rings, 1 body piece, and the shield. In terms of our traits and how we laid them out, I am running 5 sturdy and 3 impen. That is what I found to be the best ratio for me. You can kind of tune your sturdy and impen like you'd want, but I prefer to have more block reduction than more impen from my gear, more crit resist. As long as I have above 2k crit resist, which I was able to accomplish from my CP, I'm perfectly content with that. So I'd rather put more points or get more out of block cost reduction than just get, another however much impen from, or however much crit resist. So, another 250 crit resist from another impen piece. But that's just me. You can kind of tune things how you like it and what you prefer. Like I said, 3 prismatics on the big body pieces, and then the rest is going to be Magicka glyphs, including on the shield that will also be a Magicka glyph. We have jewelry. We have 2 spell damage and 1 Magicka recovery. I chose to run a Magicka recovery glyph because I'm putting a lot of points into Arcanist, so that'll really boost this up. If you don't want to run a Magicka recovery glyph here, you could run a cost reduction glyph here. Or if you play an Argonian, I play a Dark Elf. If you play an Argonian, you could use another spell damage enchant here. You don't have to run the Magicka recovery or the cost reduction because of the Argonian passives. You have way more sustain, so you can afford to run another spell damage glyph here. And actually, you should. Otherwise, your damage is going to be a little bit lower. So I'd recommend if you're an Argonian to run another spell damage glyph here. Our front bar weapon is Nirnhoned with a flame damage enchant to help us out with, because we do run a lot of dots in this build. This is a very dot heavy build. It enables Scoria, helps with BSW. So adding a flame damage enchant there helps with that. And then on our back bar, we have an infused Inferno Staff with a weapon and spell damage enchant. I am running a Destruction Staff back bar. It enables me to utilize Elemental Drain, which I'll go into a bit in a sec. And that ability really, really helps out the build sustain a whole lot because heavy armor just doesn't have the same cost reduction that light armor does, so you need to run, at least through my experiences, I have felt around 22 to 2400 effective Magicka recovery is the best for heavy armor. At least with how I've played heavy armor builds, I found that is the best, because you don't have as much cost reduction, you need that much regen at least to sustain your pool. At least I do when I play. At least I do. If you can play with less recovery, be my guest, but I prefer to play with a little bit of higher recovery, like I said, between 22 and 2400. So yeah, talked about Shackle Breaker, and let's get right into the ability. So our first ability is going to be Flame Lash. Obviously, deals flame. It's our bread and butter spammable. Deals flame damage, and then if you hit an enemy that's immobile or stunned, you set them off balance, and then that grants you Power Lash, so you can hit them with a harder lash, stun them, heal you, and this can occur once every 3 seconds. Bread and butter spammable, part of the build. You wouldn't really run a MagDK PvP build without it. Our next ability is Burning Embers. It deals instant damage and applies a dot over 10 seconds, and it heals you for 90% of the total damage inflicted when the effect ends. That does include reapplication. So you definitely need to maintain this at all times in order to make sure that you have good healing incoming. And you can put this on multiple people. You don't have to just put this on one person. But failure to maintain Burning Embers, you will see a massive drop in your healing throughput. So make sure that you are maintaining this on your target at all times. If you need to heal in a pinch, smack your enemy with another Burning Embers. The effect will technically have ended, so you can give yourself a quick heal in a pinch. Our stun for the build is Fossilize. It's a unblockable, undodgeable stun. They take magic damage when the stun ends, and they are rooted for 3 seconds afterwards. I know some people like Shattering Rocks. I still prefer Fossilize. Burns through the target stamina pool a little bit easier. I just think that Fossilize, for at least the way that this build plays, is a bit better than the other stun that we have. In terms of our Talon Morph, I chose to go with Choking Talons. The reason I chose Choking Talons is because it applies one of the best debuffs for PvP, and that is Minor Maim. It reduces your enemy's damage by 15% for 7 seconds. It's just too good to not run. Burning Embers, or not Burning Embers, Burning Talons is okay if you get Minor Maim from somewhere else, but if you don't get Minor Maim from another source, in my opinion, you must run Choking Talons. It's just way too good of a minor debuff to not run. It helps in so many situations. 1v1, 1vx, group play. It just offers so much. It offers so much damage reduction on your enemies. It's just 15%, right? No matter what they do, crit, non-crit, dots, 15% off all their damage. It's just too good to not have. Our heal is Coagulating Blood. Now, the reason I have Coagulating Blood on the front bar is because my front bar is where my spell damage is my highest. It's where I have my Nirnhoned weapon, so it is where my spell damage is highest, so I want my heal where that is, where I have the most spell damage. It heals me for a flat amount, and increases by up to 33% based on my missing health, and it also gives me Major Fortitude, increasing my health recovery by 20% for 23 seconds. That kind of goes to waste because we are a vampire, but we're not really using it for that anyway. Our ultimate on the front bar is, of course, Ferocious Leap. We have a 16.5k tooltip on that, so we leap, knocking enemies back, stunning them for 2 seconds, and then we gain a 52% absorption shield of our max health for 6 seconds afterwards. Leap is just, it's like Flame Lash. You just run it. It's such a good ultimate. It offers so much. It's cheap. It offers a damage shield. It deals a lot of damage. It CCs. It's just so good. It's too good to not run. And especially like when you have BSW proc, this tooltip will get high. When you have BSW proc, Coagulating Blood will get high. Like, you get a good tooltip on this, even though you're in heavy armor, and you will be dealing a lot of damage. It's too good of an ultimate to not run. On our back bar, we have Degeneration. Now, the reason I run Degeneration and not Structured Entropy is because I don't like how Structured Entropy gives me way more health on my back bar than it does on my front bar. So if I switch to my back bar, like in a situation where my health may be on the lower side, I could potentially put myself into execute range, and I do not want to do that. So I chose to go with Degeneration. Also, Degeneration, because we're using a Inferno Staff, our light and heavy attacks will have a 50% chance to heal us for 138% of the damage caused. So we are using an Inferno Staff on our back bar. So our light attacks will still deal some decent damage. So it gives us a chance to kind of proc a little bit of a heal there. So this deals magic damage over 14 seconds. Again, it's another dot to add to the build. And it heals you for 1880 health and an additional 1880 every 6 seconds. And then it is also our source of major sorcery. We are running Engulfing Flames on the back bar. Now, yes, this gets buffed by an Inferno Staff, not by a Lightning Staff, which is why I'm running an Inferno Staff on my back bar. I just like the heavy attacks deal more damage, and it also buffs my Engulfing Flames. Engulfing Flames is so good for builds that use Burning Spell Weave. It really buffs the crap out of the Flame status effect, and it also just allows you to proc BSW really, really, really easily. So it's really good to have. It adds 10% more damage to all your fire attacks as well. So we are a heavy armor build. Being able to just add 10% more damage to all of our attacks is going to make our damage a lot more respectable. I believe between this and my next skill is the reason that I have been accused in this build of wearing light armor. People are like, how are you so tanky and you're dealing damage of a light armored build? And I'm like, no, I'm actually in a heavy armor build. And people are really shocked by the damage between Engulfing Flames and Elemental Drain. Elemental Drain grants Major Breach on our target, reducing their spell resistance by 5280. Combined with how many points we have in Spell Erosion, we are doing a lot of penetration for a heavy armor build. But the main reason I run LE Drain, and oh my god, this ability is so good. It doesn't cost you anything. It's got a range of 41 meters for 24 seconds. Applies minor Magicka Steal, causing you and your allies to restore 300 Magicka every 1 second when damaging them. So because of how many dots we run, we're always technically damaging our target. This gives us 600 effective Magicka recovery on the build, causing our effective Magicka recovery to be about 2373. So we have so much recovery on this build, and Elemental Drain really allows us to beat on our targets hard in a 1v1 fight. and it allows us to keep ourselves topped off really easily. Even if you're fighting 1vx, this is still a good ability. You put LE Drain on your main target and just beat on that target, and you're going to be getting Magicka back constantly. This is the sole reason for this build that I went Inferno Staff on the back bar, is to gain access to LE Drain. It's such a good skill, and I highly recommend that you use it. We are using Volatile Armor. Not hardened armor. We're using volatile armor again. Just, we have Scoria, one another dot. So this grants us major resolve and major ward. And we release a spray of spikes, causing our enemies to take magic damage over 10 seconds. And then while active, the armor returns magic damage to our attackers. So again, staple in most Magicka DK builds, really makes us tankier with our major resolve and major ward. So definitely something you want to run. Also, when we have this active, our healing is increased by a considerable amount due to our Draconic Power passives. Elusive Mist. I know some people don't like Elusive Mist on MagDK. Some people swear by Elusive Mist on MagDK, and I'm in the latter camp. I think that Elusive Mist, especially for Cyrodiil, is really, really key to your success. I know some people don't like it, but I love it. It reduces our damage taken by 75% and grants us major expedition, increasing your movement speed by 30% for 4 seconds. Now, do keep in mind that when you enter this, you cannot recover Magicka. Your Magicka recovery is disabled. You're able to recover Magicka through other sources. Let's say you're wearing Desert Rose, you could recover Magicka that way, but you cannot gain Magicka via your Magicka recovery. Don't wait till the last second to use Elusive Mist, though. That's the thing. You can't just use Elusive Mist willy-nilly. You need to use it in key moments before you're going to get dropped to like 10%, and they're going to be able to kill you through Elusive Mist anyway. You can use Elusive Mist if you are not able to block. You could use Elusive Mist to dampen or lessen incoming damage. You can use it to kite around. You could use it to even gap close if you're that desperate to use it. But it just grants us a lot of mobility that we would not otherwise have. Offensive and defensive. Obviously, mainly defensive. But I personally recommend running it. If you don't want to run it, though, I do have some other skills that I could recommend. Mainly, I would probably recommend Wings if you don't want to run that. Dragon Fire Scale. You could also run Dragon Fire Scale instead of Elusive Mist in duels to reflect projectiles. And the reflected projectiles deal 35% additional damage. I generally don't like Wings, only because it can reflect light attacks. So if you're getting beat on by 2 or 3 people, and let's say they're all ranged and they all hit you with a light attack, you only have 1 projectile now that you could reflect. So I'm generally not a huge fan of Wings, but for duels it's good. But I'm telling you, Elusive Mist it's definitely much better to run. And then our backbar ultimate is Devouring Swarm. We deal magic damage to our nearby enemies every second for 5 seconds, and the bats heal us for health for every enemy they damage. So this is our like big 1vx ultimate. You know, if we really need healing in a pinch or we're getting completely mobbed down by people, you just simply pop Devouring Swarm, and that'll keep you topped off health-wise while allowing you to... It will deal damage at the same time, and you can continue to go on the offensive because you're going to be being healed by your backbar ultimate for 5 seconds. So you're able to just stay offensive while your backbar ultimate heals you and deals damage at the same time. So that is our abilities. Also, backbar, was going to say, backbar during duels, I definitely would recommend Shooting Star. You're not going to really want to use Devouring Swarm in a duel. So Shooting Star will give you more magic and magic recovery in the backbar, and you could also use it if you're like facing a really, really tough target. You could use Shooting Star to help get through that target's defenses in a duel situation where maybe Leap is not cutting it. Shooting Star will deal a little bit more damage than your Leap will, and will give you a bigger battle roar while you are dueling. So in terms of other stuff, we have the Atronach Mundus. If you do not feel that you need more Magicka recovery, you can go Apprentice or you could go Mage. I felt for this build that Atronach works the best. So take that for what you will, but that is what I'm using. I am a stage 4 vampire. You need it for Mist form, and the extra 10% recovery is very nice, and it's also nice for Undeath, which allows you to take less damage when you're getting lower health. And then again, as I said, with Shackle Breaker, the main benefit of Shackle Breaker is because it gives you so much stamina from that 5-piece, you're able to combine it with those prismatics to run Witch Mother's Potent Brew, allowing your Magicka recovery to really, really sit pretty. If you are a rich boy and have tons of money, you could run Clockwork Citrus Fillet. But, I mean, we are a vampire, so not as worth it. So I would just stick with, save your money and run Witchmother's Potent Brew. In terms of our race, I obviously recommend Dunmer. My second recommendation would probably be Argonian, followed by High Elf. Dunmer, in my opinion, just offers the most damage-wise and is what I think is best. I know some people really like running Argonian for the extra sustain, but I just believe that for MagDK, it's really hard to dethrone the Dunmer as like the king. It just offers so much more flame damage, and being that is primarily what our abilities deal damage-wise, it's just the best. I think Dunmer is the way to go. In terms of our consumables, we are going to be running tri-stat pots. I like tri-stat pots for the build. I know some people really do like immovabilities. I use immovabilities more on my light armor builds, but for my heavy armor builds, I think that tri-stat pots are the best, especially for that stamina restoration. It's really key when we are in really bad situations where we're blocking a lot of damage. A tri-stat pot combined with a really nice ultimate can just flood all three of our resources back and really, really help us out. So I definitely recommend running tri-stat pots. In terms of our stats, before I go into the champion points, we are sitting at almost 37k max magicka, almost 26k maximum health, and 15k max stam. For a heavy armor sword and shield build, even just most sword and shield builds, I would not really go much below 15k max stam. 14 to 15k, I think, is your minimum to really... I think anything less is not enough. I think if you have any less than 14 or 15k, you just don't have enough to do all the blocking that you're going to be doing with a sword and board and be able to reliably CC break. So I think that if you have anything less than 15 or 14k max stam, 14 is pushing it. I think 15 is the minimum, especially if you're going to play more aggressive and kind of like up in the fight. I think 15k is what you want to be aiming for. So we have 15k stam. Again, 1745 magic recovery. I don't know why it was 1773 before. That may have been because it was on my back bar. Yes, so 1745 magic recovery on the front bar, and we have 1773 on the back bar due to actually having degeneration. I don't know why I missed that for a second. 263 health recovery, obviously low because we're a vampire. 727 stam recovery. We have 2100 unbuffed spell damage on our front bar and 1900 on our back bar. 25.6k spell critical. And then unbuffed resistance is 21.k spell and 18.5k physical with, again, 2k crit resist, about 2k crit resist. Now, in terms of our champion points, we are running. Let me pull up my champion points here because I am not capped yet, so I am missing some stuff. We have 56 points into Warlord, 75 into Arcanist, 72 into Shadow Ward, and 37 into Tumbling. We have 23 points into Elfborn. We don't need to go that high into Elfborn because our crit's not that high, but I do like to get a little bit of crit modifier from Elfborn. 75 points in Elemental Expert. This is going to be, this actually is 42 into Spell Erosion. So again, between Spell Erosion and Elemental Drain, we have a lot of penetration on this build. 66 points into Master at Arms, and then this will be 34 points into Thaumaturge. I don't like to go much higher than 34. Your Dottz, while strong, are not going to really be your main killer. Your Flame Lash and your Leap is what mainly deals your damage. I like to buff the Dottz in this build a little bit due to how many we run. But in most of my builds, you could even lower this. You can even lower this more. I just like to go 34 into Thaumaturge because of just how many Dottz we run. But if you don't like Thaumaturge, you can take points out of Thaumaturge and either pump up Master at Arms more, pump up Elfborn, Spell Erosion, whatever you want. I just like to have 34 points in a Thaumaturge for this build. 56 points into Ironclad to counteract everybody else's Master at Arms. 54 points into Resistant. We have to go high into here because of how many pieces of Sturdy we are running. 56 points in a Thick Skinned, 37 into Hardy, and then this will be 37 into Elemental Defender. I do not like points in Quick Recovery or in Blessed for this build. They don't scale that well. I can't really look at any of my champion points and be like, oh, I don't need points here and can put them into Blessed or Quick Recovery. I just don't think they're good enough right now to put points into for this type of build. They don't really scale all that well, so if you want to put points there, go ahead. I don't recommend it for this type of build. But it's really up to you. Champion points are very, very personal and can really be tuned to how you like. Now, in terms of alternate sets, if you don't want to farm, because I know people always ask me, Dottz Gaming, I don't want to farm Burning Spell Weave. Do you have any alternate sets that you'd recommend? You could obviously run something like Julianos. It's another option to run, even though the spell damage will not carry to your back bar. Spinners is another really good option. Enables a lot of penetration. You probably are going to want to take some points out of spell erosion if you do run spinners. But those would be probably my two biggest replacements for BSW. I'm telling you though, farm up BSW. It's 100% worth it. It's such a staple set for MagDK. So I personally would take the time to farm it up. In terms of attributes, I just realized that we are going 64 points into Magicka. Obviously, we don't need anything into health and stamina. We're a Magicka build, so we want to put all our points into Magicka. In terms of tips and miscellaneous stuff for the build, obviously, like any other build, you want to maintain your buffs and debuffs at all times to maximize the build's capability, especially with DKs, guys. We do not have any executes. So what a build like this is going to get its kills from being able to maintain pressure and burst in at a proper time. So, for example, if you have all your dots rolling on someone, right, and you're going to town on that guy, and he starts getting low, and you're like, you know what, I'm not going to refresh my dots. I'm not going to keep going through my rotation. I'm just going to start spamming Flame Lash. That guy might be able to turn the fight on you, and now you have zero momentum. Your Burning Embers isn't up on your target. Your Engulfing Flames isn't up on your target. You don't have LE Drain running. So don't overcommit to kills. On a build like this, maintaining volatile armor on yourself for your tankiness, LE Drain for your sustain, Engulfing Flames to enable your flame attacks to do more damage, Degen for major sorcery, Burning Embers for healing. Maintaining your buffs and your dots means maintaining your pressure. So don't let that stuff fall off and don't get lazy with it. And remember, with this build, your offense is your defense. So your Power Lash is going to deal a lot of healing. Burning Ember is going to have a lot of healing. When you have BSW procced on your front bar, Coagulating Blood is going to heal huge amounts of damage. Huge amount of damage. It's going to heal so much. So keep that in mind when you're playing. Your offense is your defense. It's a little bit harder now. You're a little less tankier now because Burning Embers and Power Lash are now dodgeable. Keep that in mind. But your offense is going to be a huge part of your defensive capabilities. Now, remember, as I said before, LE Drain, very important. Maintain that on somebody at all times. It enables so much damage. It enables a massive part of your sustain. So don't let that fall off. Really, really focus on maintaining that LE Drain on your target. Also, a lot of people don't know this. When your target is rooted, stand behind them. They will not be able to hit you. People don't know this sometimes. When you're in a root, you can't rotate. You are rooted. You're stuck. So what's really obnoxious that people don't like about MagDK is just root someone and stand behind them. You can just beat on them for free until they roll dodge, and they can't hit you. So keep that in mind. Also, you have a lot of control on your target between not only just Talons, but Fossilize. Fossilize is a stun and a root. Talons, just a root. You're able to really keep someone up close and personal to you with those two abilities. And if you combine them well, especially with Leap, you can pull off massive, massive bursts that your opponent cannot block or counter. And stunning someone at a key moment is going to be what enables your burst windows here. Because on this build, we have Scoria. If you're able to hit someone with a key Fossilize when your Scoria is about to proc, you can, like right beforehand, you can hit that Fossilize, the Scoria procs, combo that with a Leap, they're eating a ton of damage. A ton of damage. But that is basically it for the build, guys. That is the build in a nutshell. Oh, just so, because I always get asked 500 times, my motifs and my die. Ebonheart head and shoulders. Akaviri chest. Morak Tong gloves. Breton belt. Skin changer legs. Boswatch boots. Ebonheart packed staff. Akaviri weapon. And Daedric shield. The die is Bloodroot wine and Obsidian ash black. So that is my outfit, because I get asked about my outfit a lot. But that is the build, guys. I hope I did a good enough job explaining it. This is one of my favorite builds. This was the first build that I came up for my MagDK that I loved. This was the first build that I fell in love with. This was the build I learned my MagDK on, and the build I got really good at. It's a pretty standard build This isn't anything like, it's not like I'm coming here saying I came up with the most out of the world thing. Plenty of people have run this build before. This is just my little take on it and how I have basically kind of tuned and changed things to work for how I play and what I think is good. And I'm telling you, this build will serve you well for many, many patches. It's very solid, very good overall. One of the things I love about it is, like I've said probably 2 or 3 times, the Shackle Breaker really just helps out this build so much. The extra resources that it offers is really good, and in my opinion is probably one of the better sets you can use for your sustain set on this build. I know some people do like Desert Rose, but I prefer to run Shackle Breaker with Witch Mother's Potent Brew as opposed to Desert Rose and needing to run Tri-Stat Food. But again, little personal thing that I prefer. But if you have any questions about the build, by all means, leave it in the comment section below. If you want to see the build in action, you could always go onto my YouTube channel and look back through some previous live streams. I have streamed this build plenty of times before. Like I said, last patch, I streamed this build a shit ton. I'm streaming a different build now, a light armor build that's going to come next week. Like I said, this build really shines in duels. It really shines in group play. It's not as good for 1vx this patch as it was previously, just due to the nerfs to Burning Embers and Flame Lash, but it will still work well, and I also think this is a much better build for newer MagDKs than light armor builds, just simply because heavy armor in and of itself is a more forgiving armor weight. But guys, if you enjoyed this build guide, if you enjoyed the build, I would appreciate it if you left a like on the video. Again, any comments, questions, or concerns, please leave them in the comments section below. And if you would like to see more builds, more streams, all good stuff here on the Dottz Gaming YouTube channel, hit that sub button, as well as hit the little bell next to it to keep notifications on so that you always know what I'm doing here on YouTube. Again, if you do not like something about the build, change it to fit your playstyle. This build does work. It is very successful. It's a good build. And I hope you guys find success with it. Anyway, thank you for watching. Really appreciate you stopping by and staying to the end of the video. As always, I'm Dottz Gaming, and I will see you in the next one.